Hi, everyone. I'm Don Sauce here. I'm the Faculty Associate Director of our Teaching and Learning Center here at K-State, and you have found your way to our professional development series. Couple of announcements before we get going. Number one, our PD series meets at noon in real time over Zoom all throughout the academic year. So you found us today in real time, maybe, or you're watching us asynchronously. If you're watching us asynchronously and you want to come in real time, see us next Wednesday at noon. If you watch enough of our events, you can become a TLC Professional Development Certificate earner. And we have those both for faculty and staff as well as for graduate students. So you can definitely check that out at that same link that my colleague is dropping in the chat. And this information is available for you on our webpage as well. You can learn how to become a TLC fellow. A TLC fellow is usually faculty members who are trying to extend other people's teaching excellence, not just their own. So you can kind of engage in us in that way. And often what that does is it gets you invitation to participate in our professional development series the next year as a speaker. So that's kind of a cool thing for you and for us, definitely for us. Um, we also have a TLC Teams chat, a TLC hub, we're calling it, available for you. And if you attend this event, we'll add you automatically. If you didn't want to be added, let us know. We'll take you back off. But right now, it's getting robust. We got about 87 members on that team chat. And that's a great way that you can kind of find out information about the resources that we have, the events we have coming up, and also engage in some real-time conversation with your colleagues about teaching-related questions and issues. Also, a great place to kind of share resources that you kind of have found that you found helpful yourself that someone else might like too. Next week, we have a fun event, and I say that with a little bit of a conflict of interest. I will be presenting in the professional development series next week on tips for successful lectures. Lecture is sometimes kind of thought of as a curse word in education. I don't think it should be. I think it's actually a very efficient way to get information out to a lot of people. But I think lecture has gotten a bad name sometimes because we don't do a great job in them. So what we're going to be talking about next week is how to do good, interactive, dynamic lectures that help our students engage and help them learn. So I'm really excited about that event next week. But before next week, I am super excited for the event today. And if you saw the promotional video, you're excited as well. You get to see a little scenario play out about what might happen if you're a faculty member who realizes one of the students in your class is not engaging in the way that they might, and you're wondering what to do. And if you're wondering what to do, you've come to the right place because our colleagues today are going to tell us what we can do. So I'll hand it over to representatives from our CARE office and our CAPS office. Thank you so much for being here today as part of our professional development series.
Thank you, Don, and thank you, Jeff, for inviting us today. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Can you all see our presentation okay?
Looks
No.
like it's loading. There it is. Oh,
Okay.
I'm seeing Jeff's team channel.
Okay. Let me share the other screen. Hold on.
If you're ever presenting over Zoom, sharing the screen is the hardest part.
It is. Oh, we're almost there. Okay. How about round two? We good?
It's loading. And yes, there we go.
Okay, perfect. Well, thank you again for joining us for our conversation today. Hopefully you had a chance to watch our promo video. I think the three of us are welcoming our Grammy Award-winning nominations for that performance. But just thank you for being here for our conversation today. I think one of the things we want to just acknowledge, right, is that our faculty and academic affairs partners really help provide a safety net for students. And so just hoping to expand your toolkit in understanding a couple of key resources right on campus, including CARE and CAPS. So my name is Libby Thorson. I am the Assistant Director for the CARE Office. I have about 14 years of experience within this field and have a background both at rural-based institutions as well as urban-based institutions prior to coming to Kansas. I've been in the role in at K-State since August, so just over 7 months, which feels exciting.
My name is Karan Bhatia. I am a staff therapist, also the outreach coordinator for CAPS. So do a lot of collaborating with other campus partners, faculty, staff to kind of just go out, talk about our services or different topics regarding mental health, which a lot of us do. This is my third year at K-State, and I'm Indian, but I was born and raised in the Middle East, so grew up in the United Arab Emirates, which I call home, which is not, I guess, exactly home.
Welcome, y'all, and I am Marcos. I'm also a psychotherapist here at CAPS. I have been here for 5 years. My main job is to work with students, to meet with students that have some clinical concerns regarding mental health. I was born and raised in Argentina, and I have been here since the age of 20, so long time.
So we're gonna start with an overview of the Care Office Center services, and then my fabulous colleagues from CAPS will kind of talk about their services and some of the differences between the two. I just wanted to start this conversation, whether you're joining us live today or watching this series at a later point in time, is just acknowledging, right, that many folks have their own personal connection to interpersonal harm, whether a direct experience or someone that they care about. And so just wanting to acknowledge, thank you for joining today, and for also joining at a later point in time, always encouraging you to take care of yourself as you need to. One thing I want to highlight before we dig in is today's conversation does not replace, right, your responsible employee obligations under Title IX. And that while we're not going to do a deep dive on like warning signs, if you are ever worried about a student, you can always submit a student of concern referral. That referral goes directly to our partners in student support and accountability. They do their outreach and then also will help funnel students right to places like CAPS, like CARE, Title IX, et cetera, depending on what that individual is needing. So just know if you're ever not sure, that can be a great place to start. And then we work together as a network. So what is the Care Office? If you haven't heard of us before, or maybe are not quite sure, we are a confidential, free, and voluntary advocacy space on campus. I really always like to highlight the advocacy piece because there are other confidential spaces on campus, but we're the only ones who do the advocacy work. And we'll talk about that in a moment. One common misconception is that we only serve students. That's not true. We can work with any K-State community member. So that is actively enrolled students, full-time employees, and part-time employees. We can work with those who have been directly impacted by forms of harm or maybe indirectly impacted, right? So if we have a colleague who's going through something, or maybe it's my roommate. As a student, my roommate had something happen and I'm not quite sure how to support them, and or I witnessed it, right? And I'm having a hard time navigating that. Maybe my partner is a survivor, right? And I want to be really thoughtful about how to support them. So we can work with all folks. Based on identity, we're not limited in that scope. We are grant funded, and so we primarily work only around sexual violence. So that includes things like sexual abuse as a child, rape, sexual assault, sexual exploitation, any kind of relationship concern. We don't define relationships for people, right? So domestic abuse, dating violence, it can be any amount of time in terms of that relationship, as well as sexual harassment and then stalking. Acknowledging that sometimes these behaviors can overlap and people come to us having experienced multiple things, right, by the same individual. One thing that I love to highlight is that our support is not limited to the thing having to have happened while you were either working at or enrolled at K-State. So we know a lot of our students who come from our communities in Kansas might be coming to K-State where their abuser is also here, right, and still needing some support. And so we can still coordinate that care, provide support to them, navigate campus resources, provide a space for them to exist. We are a kind of small but mighty team, I think. I, as the assistant director, oversee 2 full-time advocates, and then we have some really phenomenal student employees. We have a grad student and then about 4 student employees right now, also looking to expand into internships as well to provide those opportunities for sort of that in environment learning. We can meet with people in person in our office, remotely, and accompany them to other kind of appointments, right? So if a client does decide they want to maybe explore reporting to law enforcement or Title IX, or they're worried about that next step, we can go with them, right, and just provide that emotional support in that space. And then we're located over in Holton Hall on the 2nd floor, just across from the Student Support and Accountability team. I wanted to make a quick note on confidentiality. Our office staff are not responsible employees required to report to Title IX. We keep confidentiality really important to our space, though there are some circumstances, right, where we are legally mandated to have to report things. That would include any active concerns of child, elder, or vulnerable adult abuse, if there are concerns around active and immediate harm to self, others, and to campus, and when we have legal mandates, right, so a subpoena for that information. I want to start with some things that CARE is not, right? So we are not therapy providers, I'm really glad that we're doing this conversation with my colleagues from CAPS. We are not student conduct or disciplinary. We're not investigators. We're not the criminal justice system. We can't legally represent anybody. We do not work directly with abusers, provide them intervention, and we're not primary prevention education. So those are some things that we do not and cannot do, partly because of our grant funding. So what is it that we do, right? Inherently, advocates serve the role of bearing witness to stories of violence and harm. Our role is to provide space to listen and then to connect people with resources when and if they're ready to take any kind of next step around that. I think the fundamental piece of that, though, is our role is to believe, right, what that individual is sharing with us. We don't require people to go into detail about what happened. We have a really short intake form that people do have to fill out. All you have to do is check a box on the type of harm they've experienced. That's because of our grant. They don't need to tell us anything beyond that to receive information on options, resources, support, or just to process something if that's what they're wanting to do. Some of the things that we can provide, and we really try to tailor our initial meeting and then any follow-up meetings that that individual wants based on their individual needs. But we can coordinate academic support. If they do want to explore reporting, what does that look like to campus, to law enforcement, to Title IX, HR, whoever that might be. Maybe what happened in their residence hall room and like they just can't stay there. It's too hard. It's re-traumatizing to them, coordinating a room change or room move. We do also have emergency financial assistance that we get through our grant funding. Part of that can help pay for therapy off campus, which I'll talk about in a moment. One of the big things that we do, though, the majority of it is just emotional support, right? Like that providing affirming space, listening to that individual. Sometimes we're the first person that they might be telling about a thing that happened to them. We can also help individuals file for protective orders online through Kansas. There's two different types, protective orders from abuse and from stalking. And then for students, right, if they want to explore a no contact directive with another student, we can kind of coordinate that and help set up that conversation with our partners over in the Student Support and Accountability Office and or through Title IX. There's a lot that we do, but kind of these are the main buckets, right? Again, it's really just dependent on what that individual needs or wants. A quick note on the Healing Fund. We have a lot of really great mental health services at K-State, right? We've got CAPS, we've got the Family Center. We just rolled out Timely Care. I know my partners are probably going to talk about that, but some of our students maybe have sort of graduated, right, in terms of their therapy off campus, or just want to explore a different experience. We can help cover the cost of that mental health care. So maybe they're wanting a higher level of trauma treatment. Maybe there's some other co-occurring concern related to their victimization. All they need to do is meet with an advocate once for us to verify that they qualify under the grant, and we have funding we can provide to them. Right now, we had $15,000 awarded to us through our grant to pay for therapy for students. So I think this is a really great resource that we have available. I also just want to acknowledge, right, like our office primarily focuses on sexual and interpersonal violence and the trauma around that. But as faculty, as staff, as people, we recognize that trauma can exist in many different forms. Trauma can happen from a student who's had a car accident or witnessed that. Maybe you have a veteran in your class. And so just acknowledging that some of the things that we talk about, some of the warning signs that you might notice are not just because someone went through something in the sexual misconduct, sexual concern bucket, or relationship concern, but there can be some similar warning signs, right, that you might want to check in around and still connect someone to some resources. Some things that we often see for individuals who've had something happen, right? They may have a harder time concentrating in class. Maybe there's some memory concerns connected to that, some feelings of increased anxiety. Maybe the person who harmed them is in class with them or has class near them in the same building around the same time. They might start to withdraw, right, from their friend groups, changes in behaviors that could be a warning sign. Maybe one of your students, right, was coming to class every day and all of a sudden they've dropped off. You notice that they're no longer turning in assignments. Maybe they've talked about wanting to withdraw from K-State, transfer somewhere else, or they've just gone non-communication, right? There often is a sign that something is going on there. And like I said, it doesn't inherently mean that it's something in the trauma bucket, but it could be an indication that maybe that student of concern referral should be filled out, or a consultation to our office if you think something maybe happened, where we can kind of walk through how do you have that dialogue. So say you do check in. One thing that I think is really important in terms of context for us is bringing this issue sort of in space today. So when I initially interviewed for the role at K-State over the summer, one of the things I went and dug around was data, because I'm a data-driven person. Like, I like to kind of understand the scope of an issue to ensure that we have the resources, interventions, and support necessary to try to attend to that. So you'll see I took some data from fall enrollment of 2024. And then if you think nationally, knowing that about 1 in 4 women, while they're enrolled at an institution anywhere in the United States, we estimate that about 1 in 4 will experience some form of sexual violence. And at K-State, that's about 2,700 students that are identified as women, right? And for men, we know that nationally, 1 in 14 will experience some kind of harm while enrolled. And so about 650 students. And this is just while they're enrolled, right? This doesn't account for what happened before coming to K-State. And so I think it's important to acknowledge that it's likely that you will interact with trauma survivors in your classes and maybe with colleagues across campus or within your field of research and in your own personal life. Like, we don't really know what someone is carrying with them on a day-to-day basis. And so having some of these tools that we'll talk about in your back pocket can be helpful should someone eventually disclose to you a concern that they've navigated. So say you do check in with a student, right? You notice that they've stopped coming to class or seem a little bit more withdrawn, and they do end up offering to you, like, something happened and I'm not sure where to go for support, and maybe something related to sexual assault or a relationship concern. I think some things to consider, right, is providing an affirming response. I'm glad that you told me. You're not alone, and I know resources that can help, right? Really just responding in a way that affirms them and offers there's help and support available to you. I think some things that are not helpful is we're not investigators, right? Don't promise outcomes because we don't know, we can't control that. Because we're not investigators, don't ask why questions. That's not always helpful. And definitely don't pressure someone to report, right? I think that's the part of offering options, connecting to resources, where then places like our office, CAPS, et cetera, can walk through options and then let that person kind of decide what they want to do next. The most important thing, though, is to inform them of your obligations in that next step, right? So that Title IX piece of, thank you for telling me there's some really great resources I'd like to connect you with. However, I do need to let you know I'm a responsible employee, and letting them know what that process looks like, right? And that really they never have to respond to that outreach from Title IX if they don't want to. But I think it's always important from a choice perspective to let them know that that is the next step that you have to take. So how can you connect a student to us? Really, I think one of the most important things, and I know not every student reads their syllabus in detail, but ensuring that you do have some really great campus resources highlighted, and maybe just, in class, at least noting that, particularly for our first year students, or if you have a high percentage of transfer students in your courses. We welcome direct referrals, right? So if you have a student disclosed to you in office hours, give us a call, right? We're happy to talk to you and them together, schedule an appointment. You're also welcome to walk them over to our space. Like, if they say that would be helpful, we welcome that as well. And doing that sort of warm handoff. If you're not sure, right, like your spidey sense is saying, I think something might be off with the student, I'm noticing some of those warning signs, give us a call. Like, we can kind of consult around how do you have that initial conversation to say, hey, I've noticed this pattern and I'm really worried about you and want you to know that if you want to talk to someone, right, CARE, CAPS, et cetera, are here for you. I'm also here for you if you want to discuss. That piece is ensuring that they understand your reporting obligations, so that they know, right, who they want to tell what and when to. I think one other kind of passive way is to have resources in your office, right? So, I think about visually, like, what message do we send to students when they come visit us in our spaces on the resources, the things that we care about, et cetera. So just some really passive, but also slightly active ways to connect with us. Once a referral is made to us, essentially we assess for safety, right? So if you let us know that, I have a student in my class who I think needs an outreach. I have concerns that maybe their partner is abusive. They keep showing up and waiting for them after class. we probably would not just email, because what we're going to do is assess that for safety. So we kind of determine what is the most safe way for us to try to engage with that individual. They don't have to meet with us either, right? Their engagement is voluntary and it's definitely within their control. So they can meet with us once, decide, I'm not ready to continue conversation, or maybe I got my needs met. We don't push them to meet with us again. Again, we're confidential, and even if you do a referral to us, we can't share information back unless that student does a written release. So just know it can feel yucky sometimes to trust the process right in that handoff. And I recognize that, but we really take that confidentiality piece seriously. As instructors and faculty, you often will not get direct communication from our office. So if a student does say, gosh, like what happened to me is making class really difficult. I'm having a hard time focusing. What we do then is work with our partners in student support and accountability for that academic notification to their instructors. So you never get a notice from us directly that an individual is working with their office. Any kind of that academic support, we coordinate through that team. So just know that if you're like, I've never seen an email or a letter from the care office, that's why, because we want to continue to protect that confidentiality piece for the students specifically. For employees, obviously most of that support that sort of institutionally or systematically that an individual might need from K-State could go through HR. And so we would coordinate with them around what feels appropriate. From a safety planning perspective, do they want colleagues or a supervisor to know, and how can that conversation look? What does FMLA look like and how does that qualify for certain situations? So just know that, we kind of do some of the same stuff too. For employees, obviously it looks a little bit different because they don't need academic letters to faculty. Gosh, I could probably talk about our services and pick this apart for like 10 hours, but just wanted to kind of scratch the surface a little bit on what our office does and some of our services. We, are happy to come into your individual spaces if you want to consult, have other questions, but you're welcome to also connect with us in person, online. We also host volunteer events. Employees are welcome to participate in that as well. We often do like a care card writing event for survivors. We have these little client folders that we give people when it's safe, and we like to include a little affirming note in there. And so just want to say thank you for all that you do. I know that as faculty, you have a lot on your plate as an instructor, but also, right, knowing all of the resources. And so thank you for your attention today. And I know we'll do questions at the end, but I'm going to kick it over to my colleagues in CAPS.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks, Libby. And I did want to also just share just with y'all being in academia a little bit in terms of something I learned recently in terms of more about how trauma tends to impact us like physiologically as well, is often tends to change or create an imbalance in our serotonin levels, which is one of our really big neurotransmitters that basically impacts our mood, our stress responses, and our ability to kind of focus. And so that's why a lot of times, especially people who struggle with PTSD or depression tend to kind of struggle with a lot of things that Libby mentioned in terms of how trauma can impact students academically, in terms of not being able to go to classes or do assignments and homework and that kind of stuff. And so just understanding the importance of, again, like how that tends to impact all of us physiologically as well, because one way or the other, we all would have experienced some form of trauma one way or the other, whether it still continues to impact us or not. It's a normalized part of the human experience as well. Talking a little bit about, just CAPS and services at CAPS. So obviously that is our information in terms of our email and our phone number. You can feel free to call us and email us whenever you would like to, or if you have any questions or have anything that you would like to consult about. We do have counselors on duty or crisis counselors available like 8 to 5, Monday to Friday, if any faculty or staff has any questions or anything as well, or wants to bring students over, which we'll kind of talk about as we go in as well. But you can go next slide. So firstly, who we are. So again, located in the garden level of Lafine, or the ground level. We currently have 7 psychotherapists. We have 1 full-time case manager, and a full-time medical record specialist who is our front desk staff. And we do have a student worker at the front desk as well. So what we do is offer confidential and free, culturally competent mental health services to K-State students. The free is in quotation marks just because students have basically already paid for that through their student services fee. And so all the services at CAPS are like students are not expected to pay anything up front for, besides a couple exceptions when it comes to like psychological assessments and that kind of stuff, which sometimes have to do as well. So, but basically all K-State students who have paid the student services fee are eligible for services at CAPS. You can go next.
Yeah, so the students usually come through our front doors, and they meet with the receptionist or the front desk specialist, as we mentioned earlier. They're gonna do a check-in with them. They're given a 5-item questionnaire, which yes/no questions that kind of lets us know the level of care that the student may need. If we determine that the person is in crisis, then we are able to see them that day. Usually they might not have to wait more than 5-10 minutes, but if the person who is meeting with people in crisis that day, if they have a client, the student might have to wait a little longer. But usually they also have to do other assessments. So this is a good idea that the students come in thinking that they'll have to do about 10-15 minutes of paperwork. And then if they have an appointment, the first appointment is a consultation appointment. So it takes between 20 to 40 minutes or so for us to talk to them to determine what are the next steps.
Next. So yeah, like Marco said, for that first time, students would either have one of 2 different kind of consultations. So like you already mentioned, the initial consultation usually tends to be about 20 to 40 minutes long. These can be scheduled in many different ways. Students can either come in person and just try to like walk in, or they can also schedule online through their My Lafine portal as well, or they can just call our front desk and ask to be scheduled as well. And so usually those tend to last about 20 to 40 minutes. Goal is to talk a little bit about what's been going on for them, what's bringing them in. We tend to do some safety and risk assessment kind of stuff, and then just have a conversation collaboratively about best next steps, whether it be services at CAPS, whether it be referrals to other campus partners like CARE or Student Support and Accountability or the Academic Achievement Center, or just in the community as well, if their needs would be better suited with like a community provider as well. And then the other kind of consultation is that mental health crisis consultation, which is either with usually with one of our counselors on duty or crisis counselors. And so I would like to say we don't try to define what crisis looks like for people. If we have students come in and are in a state of distress and really need to talk to someone, they don't necessarily need to be endorsing risk factors like self-harm thoughts and suicidal ideation in order to kind of meet with us immediately or as soon as possible. So we often tend to encourage faculty and staff, if you have any students that you would like to walk over as well, we often tend to have that from other faculty, roommates, RAs, and that kind of stuff as well. And so those appointments don't usually tend to have a time limit. Biggest thing is to kind of do more of a risk assessment, explore strategies to help keep the students safe or anyone else safe. And if needed, or if they are unable to keep themselves safe, we also provide referrals to the crisis stabilization unit from Pawnee Mental Health, and also kind of help get them transported there with the help of the KSU PD and stuff as well. So, next. In terms of additional, all the services that we have just in general. So we also tend to offer workshops, and these are often an addition or supplement to services that they're already engaging in at CAPS. So all our workshops are 3 modules, and they are available through students' Canvas page. So we would just add it onto their Canvas page, and they would see it just like another class that they're taking, but obviously it's not a class, there's no tests or exams with it. They just get access to all the material that would be covered during the workshop, and then recordings of CAPS counselors or therapists kind of going over the material. So each module has 1 video. Each video tends to be about like 40 to 50 minutes. And students don't need to be like engaging in services to have these workshops, to engage in these workshops. If they kind of look through our website and think that any of them would be helpful for them, they can just call us or email us to have those added onto their Canvas page, and we kind of do that for them as well. Next. In terms of other services, we tend to have groups as well. We offer a wide range of groups for different students. In the past, a lot of times people may have developed that mindset that we tend to refer to groups as like a alternative to individual therapy, which is not the case, because research has backed this, but group therapy can often be as effective, if sometimes not more effective, for a lot of students, and depending on what they're coming in with, and as long as they're a good fit for it. So we have 2 different kinds of groups. One is skills groups or support groups. These tend to be a little bit more structured and more kind of facilitator led, in terms of we as the facilitators usually come in with like topics to talk about, and coping tools and skills and that kind of stuff. So it tends to be a little bit more structured that way. So a couple of them, like the Therapy 101 is a really good one for students who've never experienced therapy or have had really poor experiences with therapy in the past, and stuff as well. And so that is a really helpful group to help them just learn more about what therapy is, better learning like what to expect in terms of building relationships with a therapist, and what to kind of expect to work on as well. Another one that we have is called Moving Naturally Through Challenges. This is actually a research group that is in collaboration with the kinesiology department. And so it is focused on learning coping skills to manage anxiety. But every group session, the kinesiology piece is we also engage in some form of outdoor, light to moderate intensity physical activity as part of every session as well, for 30 minutes. And so it's part of a research study that they're doing, kind of looking at how engaging in that physical activity tends to impact mental health symptoms. And then a new one that we're offering this semester is a support group specifically for grief, called Living with Loss as well. And so for anyone experiencing any kind of grief, whether it be the loss of a loved one, whether it be even the loss of a relationship or something significant in their life, often tends to bring about some form of grief. And so this is a support group to help students kind of learn more about the process of it, how they tend to experience it, and then more giving them a space to kind of process their experiences with grief as well. And then the other kind of group we have is a process group. And so these are a little bit more, I guess, a little less structured when it comes to things, but and tend to be more member-led and kind of guided by us as facilitators. And so it often is more of a space for students who just kind of need space to kind of work on building relationships with each other or themselves, and just kind of learning more about themselves and how they tend to interact with others and their relationships with others as well. So, yeah. And then in terms of individual therapy, which most students come here seeking, we do follow a specific model of therapy that is more short-term, goal-oriented forms of therapy. And so most commonly, we kind of work with anxiety and depression, but absolutely not limited to just those two things. It is just what college students mostly tend to experience when it comes to mental health issues that they face. And so what that impacts is frequency of sessions. Usually tends to be about every 2 to 4 weeks. We do try to do 2 weeks as much as possible, but just when things get really busy, or it may not be the case between every session in terms of that frequency. And then the same thing with couples therapy. The only requirement is that both or all partners of the relationship have to be K-State students who have paid the student services fee to be eligible for therapy at CAPS particularly. And then we also have case management services with Molly, who is our case manager. And so usually during those initial appointments, or sometimes even later in the therapy process, if we have that conversation with students, if they're presenting concerns, would more benefit from more long-term, more frequent forms of therapy, then we kind of can connect them with Molly, who is a really helpful resource to help them look for therapists in the community and help them find someone that works with health insurance if they have that, or any other resources they may need, and then any other preferences they may have in terms of working with a therapist and stuff as well. So overall, I would say, like, most students usually get their needs met in about 4 to 6 sessions on average. But again, that's average, and we don't want to diminish anyone to numbers. And so we kind of have those conversations collaboratively with the student in terms of figuring out like what best next steps to take and how they want to proceed in terms of what would be most helpful for that. Next.
Okay, so these are some of the after-hour services. So we are open from 8 to 5, but if the students are in need of assistance, they can call our line, and they will be the call will be answered by now, since this week, by Timely Care. We're contracted with them, so any student, even if they are not in Kansas, they can call our number, and they'll be in contact with the therapist who'll be able to triage. There are some other resources here, like Crisis Now line, and the 988 Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. Some of the services that Timely Care is offering is Talk Now, Crisis Now, so those are two different ones. Health coaching, self-care content. You can download some of the resources that they have on their websites, and it's pretty, there's videos and written materials about almost anything you want. There is a peer community and basic needs support. If we also have in town, if the student is in town, of course, the CSU, the Crisis Stabilization Unit. So if the student is particularly feeling unsafe because either suicidal ideation, thoughts of harming themselves, thoughts of harming others, and they want to have a safe place where they can be evaluated, they can go to the CSU or the ER. And the next is when should I see a therapist? That might be a question that a student may be asking themselves. There's many reasons for seeing a therapist. Most of our students come in, as Karen mentioned, with some form of depression and anxiety, some level of depression and anxiety. As Libby mentioned, there might be trauma. Uh, we see students who are going through breakups that are having a hard time. We see students because they're having difficulties with academia, and that may be affecting their mental health. It could be the other way around. Their mental health is getting in the way of them interacting with academia, academic work, or relationships. So if the student doesn't have to be for sure that they want to see a therapist, they can come in for a consultation to see if that is something that they want to do, and we can go from there.
The biggest thing is just taking that first step, right? Like Libby mentioned as well. As long as you just reach out to any of us or all of us, whatever works. As long as you're connected with one of us, we would be sure to connect you to any other campus partners that may continue to be a source of support as well. I think all of us do a really good job of continuing to collaborate and communicate with each other, and a lot of times tend to have a lot of mutual students that we're working with at the same time. And so again, biggest thing is just taking that first step. It doesn't have to be the right step, right? As long as you get connected to one of us, we can kind of get them connected to the right or the best resource and kind of figure that out together with the student. And
yeah, Karen mentioned already how to engage in services. There are several ways. Students often like to go online through their portal and schedule a consultation. One thing that you want to mention to students who may have said to you that they were not able to connect with CAPS through the portal is that there are some limited amount of slots available through their portal. The best way to do it would be to give us a call, and that would allow us to also schedule them farther than what the portal is allowed them to see on their calendar. So give us a call, or just come. You can let the student know that they can come in, or you can walk them over, like Libby was mentioning, a warm handoff. If you are wanting to talk to the therapist before the therapist meets with the student, that we are also welcome to do that. We will collect any information that is appropriate before we meet with the student. And we're open from 8 to 5. We're at the Lafine. So if you have any questions, you can give us a call. You can also email us at that email.
So thank you all very much for your presentation and that information. We're going to open up for questions. I'm gonna start with a question that have been asked me a lot. Is a lot of times faculty and staff are nervous about embarrassing a student or speaking out when they shouldn't. So I'm kind of wondering if you can give some maybe guidance on what's the threshold of kind of behavior that we might need to see when we start to think about making your resources kind of available to that student without offending them or making them feel like we're calling them out or something for their behavior in our class. So where's kind of that line where we should start kind of activating?
I can go first. I would say I don't think there is a line, right? Like I think um as a community, letting someone know that, I see you, and if there is something going on, please know you're not alone, and here's some resources that might benefit you. Like, I don't think that there has to be a line, right? Because it might look different for each student. You might have students who are high performing and trying to keep it all together and struggling. We don't recognize that. And then students who maybe are just a bit more disengaged, right, and not have something going on. They're just maybe not as engaged in their academic environment. And so I think that line is hard because it can feel different. I would always say, right, like trust your spidey senses, trust your instincts. If you feel like something seems off, it's a moment to check in. And you might be wrong, or that student might not be in a place to acknowledge, like, yes, I need help. Yes, I'm struggling. But you at least have signaled in that moment to them that you care, and I don't think there's ever a missed opportunity to tell somebody that. That's just my opinion. Marcos, Karan, what would you offer?
I would definitely echo that in terms of, again, there's no way to like tell, like, again, what's right moment or the right thing to say to them, but the biggest thing is you say something, right? If you notice something, you don't have to, even if you don't tell them like in person right after class or something like that, even just shooting them an email, just checking in, just being like, hey, I noticed you were, I don't know, kind of withdrawn or something like that, or notice that you haven't been turning in your assignments. I just wanted to check in to see if you're okay, you're able to cope with everything, and if you need to have a conversation, let me know. And adding on to what Libby said, I think again, the biggest thing is like giving the students autonomy as well, right, to make those decisions. I think you've already done everything you can by and showing that you care by just reaching out and letting them know. And then it is up to them in terms of whether they feel like or have the space to even reach out and ask for help if they need it as well. So yeah.
Thank you. That's very helpful. Other questions for our panel today?
I can add a nugget that I think, like, even if you feel nervous, right, about, I don't know how to have a conversation, I don't know how to first do that outreach. I've been doing this work for 14 years, right? And I still have moments where I'm like, oh, like I want to make sure I get this right. Or I want to make sure if I'm checking in on a friend, right, that I'm maybe worried about going through a hard time. That even folks who do this on a regular basis, like they can still be moments where I also worry about wanting to get it right. I've never found someone to not appreciate that outreach. I think particularly for survivors, particularly those who are navigating relationship concerns, sometimes it might take several times, right? If someone in their life, in their sphere, is saying, you know, something might be going on, I'm worried about you, please know you're not alone, before they take that step, right, to seeking support. And so just know that in terms of that safety net, um, any moment you take to check in with someone can be helping build that safety net that they're getting support or that's being reaffirmed elsewhere too. So just know that, like, if you're nervous, that's real, that's normal. I experience that sometimes too.
That is super helpful. I appreciate that.
And I also just had an idea. I mean, I think most of you have a place in your syllabus where you have resources, and that will be at a time within their first classes to let students know that if they are experiencing some issues, they can come to talk to you, so you can refer them to services, and that would be a kind of a step in the right direction.
And I'll chime in on that just real briefly too to say that please correct me if I'm wrong, but it's my understanding that actually the resources that y'all are representing are part of the optional syllabus statements, unfortunately. So one of the things that I would recommend is put them on there. It may be optional technically, but I think anything you can put on your syllabus that shows that you cares about your students' welfare and concern is really a good thing. It's kind of a demonstration to them that you care, and then remind them at various points of the semester that those resources are there. One of the things I have a class of 200 people. I I won't know. Let's say Clarissa is one of my students. I won't necessarily know that Clarissa is a little off because I have 200 of the students in there. So what I'll do is I'll let them all know, these resources are available. And if you're not feeling good, if you're feeling super stressed out, you're terrified going home for the holidays, whatever it is, we have people that you can talk to. And if you need me to help you make that contact, please do let me know. So sometimes, I'll make the blanket, kind of promotion of the resources to all of my students because I'll understand I don't know their personal circumstances.
And then I think that's great too, right? Like we can use the academic calendar also to sort of pre-think through what moments where maybe do I want to take 30 seconds at the beginning or end of class to just acknowledge, right? Like I want to highlight one of our resources. I think about, I'm new to the community. I've been told a lot about Fake Patty's Day. That is a time of this semester that our office is already preparing for. And so just thinking about heading into that week and post that week, or there's certain resources that you want to make sure that you highlight for a variety of reasons. So just kind of thinking about how, what role can you play knowing those sort of stress or pressure points that students might have, midterms, right? Things are stressful, where you can just like re-nudge a couple different resources for individuals. And that doesn't have to be just care and CAPS, right? Tutoring, whatever that might be that feels most appropriate.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate that. So we're about out of time. Are there any final questions from people in the audience?
Hello, this is Bijun Hu, and I have a question about what would be the best practices to refer students. Like when the students come to me or when I notice students are struggling, um, what should I do? Should I tell the students first that I'm reaching out to your office, or I just give your office information to the students? And what is the best practice, I wonder?
I think again, it's hard to say like best practice because you can do however works best. I mean, obviously passing on our information to the student is one thing you can do. If you do have the time and if you are really concerned about the student, again, like you can always just walk them over to CAPS or I'm sure to the care office as well. Or if you want, or like if that's too far out, not feasible, even like making the call with them to our front desk to just even schedule an appointment, right? It may not be that day itself if that's not available, but at least they have something that's on the schedule for them so that they would be able to kind of come in and talk about their concerns and we can kind of figure it out from there. So hope that answers your question.
Yes, thank you. And I think the reason I have my question is sometimes I'm not sure. Sorry.
Yeah, no,
Uh,
happens to all of us.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. Oh, sorry, I need to silence this first. Excuse me. So I'm not sure how comfortable the students is to reach out to your office, and I think it differs a lot from situation to situation. So when I feel that maybe some situation I feel the students may not feel very comfortable to come to your office, then what should I do? But if the other situation, I think the student may be more open to go to your office, then I can just walk all the students to your office, or just refer the students to you by email by copying the students in the email. But I just when I feel the student may not be comfortable to come to your office, what should I do so they can get the support they need?
Yeah, I think if in that moment they have not disclosed like a direct mental health concern or that they've experienced like sexual assault, if you're just worried, that's where I would do that student of concern online form because that goes into our partners in the student support and accountability office, and then they can reach out. And sometimes they might have, maybe another professor submitted that form, and so now they have different context. But if a student does say, right, like something happened, you have that Title IX piece if they are, having an active mental health concern, I think calling. But if, I have often found, right, if we can help alleviate some of the decision fatigue for our students, right, to say like, would it be helpful if we call together? Would it be helpful if I walked you over there? Can I follow up with you with an email, right? Like giving them that option where then they're not having to like think through one more thing, particularly if they are struggling, I found to be really successful. I walked a client to like 4 different offices yesterday because she's like, I need someone to help me navigate this right now. I was happy to do that with her permission. So that would be my recommendation. If you're not sure what the concern is, do that student of concern report first. And then our colleagues will reach out and then triage that next step with them.
Kind of goes back to again just respecting the student's autonomy as well, and but you can just ask them and see how comfortable they feel with you helping them out. But again, it's not necessarily your responsibility to kind of like figure it out. All you need to do is just kind of like refer to just again, doesn't have to be the right place, just one place is good enough, and then we can kind of figure it out from there. So thanks for your question.
Great, thank you.
And I want to, at this point, highlight that this is one of our need to know events. So what we've done over the course of the academic year, we've kind of identified some of our need to know events because we think everyone who teaches students, and teaching can be teaching, advising, mentoring, lots of different ways, should have this information. And what we're trying to do is kind of expand your professional network because we know, well, I'll speak for myself. I know I don't know how to do this, but I have colleagues on campus who do. And what this does, it kind of says, if I have a student in this situation, I now know who to call. And that's really what we're kind of hoping. So we have some real good practical recommendations. And if you're in that situation right now, you can activate those. But really, what I do is if I come into this situation, I don't rely on my memory for this. I say, I need to call the care office and get their insights about how it is to proceed. So these are people that are super motivated to making our students have the best experiences we can. Our job is to connect them to them. And I really appreciate everything that y'all do. I really enjoyed your presentation today. Thank you for being here. For those of you in the audience and watching asynchronously, please complete a post-event survey on the event. Our colleague's going to drop it into the chat for now. There it is. I'll remind you that we have a professional development series. You can become a TLC fellow. You can earn a professional development certificate. Next week, I'm going to talk about tips for successful lectures. I'd love to see you there. And we have a TLC Hub, which is a Teams page where we get a lot of this information out. So thank you so much for being here. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your afternoon, and thank you for all you do for your students.